What's going on, everybody? It's the first live stream of this channel, the first of many to come. Today is going to be a Poodle 3 draft. First place takes home $60,000. So we're definitely incentivized to give it our all. And we're definitely going to go ahead and run through some of these drafts very quickly. I'm going to give you guys a lot of my thought process, the players I love, some players I don't like, and some tips and strategies that kind of show you guys how I'm a little bit different than everybody else. But nonetheless, still aiming to go ahead and take home that prize, and still aiming to add a lot of the things that help make us successful. That includes team stacking, game stacking, and some very unique roster constructions, some that definitely help you advance and some that actually don't. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into an underdog draft as we speak. So as you can see, I'm logged in. If you guys don't know, Underdog Fantasy is the home for best ball drafts. And of course, their flagship product, Best Ball Mania 4, which gives $3 million to first place. And of course, if you're that regular season winner, you will win $1 million. So definitely would incentivize you guys to go ahead and do so, because you want to give yourselves as many opportunities as possible to really go ahead and make some life-changing money. Last year's second place actually only had one entry, and he got second place. So that was a nice $1 million prize to him. So that goes to show you guys that it really only takes one bullet from the gun. But of course, you're going to have people like myself. They're going to go ahead and fire away the max entries, which is 150, and give themselves the most opportunity to go ahead and succeed. So let's go ahead and hop into a draft. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to go ahead and do it. So you can see we're going to go ahead and enter. And beautiful. And just as a heads up as well, I've actually already gone ahead and done 10 fast drafts. I've also already went ahead and entered into 15 slow drafts just to make sure I get in on time. One thing I didn't want to miss out on was this contest, because I do like it. Over 4th of July, we actually had the Pomeranian come out, $3 entry. I believe it was a 20 entry max. But unfortunately, I just missed the boat, and it filled up within essentially 2 hours, 3 hours. So by that point, I realized, hey, we're not going to be able to max out this contest. So I'm just not going to go ahead and participate. So you definitely want to go ahead and give yourself as many opportunities as possible. You definitely want to max out these contests, because if you're not doing it, someone else will. I did mention before that it really only takes one shot to go ahead and win, but why not give yourself as many opportunities as possible to go ahead and win? So let's go ahead and see where this draft is. We're waiting for one more person. So you guys are definitely go ahead and see this live. This is not pre-recorded, I can promise you that. And I know you guys saw my thumbnail, had Lamar Jackson, had Mark Andrews, and it had Jalen Waddle in there, which is a game stack for Week 17. So, of course, we have the team stack, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, one of his pass catchers. And then, of course, Jalen Waddle would be that bring back. So if you guys aren't familiar with what bringbacks are, it's essentially a player. It's kind of like daily fantasy sports, where if I'm optimizing a roster and I pick a particular game, in this case, Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, I'm betting on that game to be a very high-scoring game. So I do expect a lot of points. And actually, if you look back to last year, that Dolphins-Ravens game, I believe it was week 2, was definitely electric. A lot of points were scored. So if you had not only the Ravens players, but then some players from the Dolphins as well, because that was such a high-scoring game, you were definitely scoring a lot of points in fantasy and for your team as well. So with this tournament right here, we definitely want to be aiming to take down first place. And if you're not game stacking, if you're not team stacking, it's definitely going to be hard to do so. It's one thing to go ahead and draft the best possible players, but it's another thing for those players, once you get into a playoff structure, to actually go ahead and help you guys advance. So last year, because this is our first stream, you guys don't know anything about me, but I'm definitely an open book. Would like to let you guys know a little bit more about myself. Last year, I had a 27.67% advance rate in Best Ball Mania 3. The only caveat there is I only put in 52 entries. So I believe that was about 15, 17 of my entries that actually went ahead and progressed to the playoff rounds. And what's normal actually is a 16.7, 17 roughly percent advance rate. So as you can see, we're about 10, 11% ahead of the market. And I'll definitely share some videos later on in regards to some things that actually helped me get there. I'll also be dropping an article on my Substack, which I will definitely go ahead and link in the channel. It's simply just Fantasy Football Shorts, Substack, of course. And of course, this isn't a short right now. This is a live stream, but I will go ahead and make this and cut it up into a little bit of a short. So that way, if you wanted to see my quick rundown, picks 1 through 18, you definitely will have 60 seconds to go ahead and do so. So probably about 3 seconds to pick. And as you can see here, we're about to be on the clock. We have pick number 9. So I see Austin Eckler, A.J. Brown, Bijan Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, and Garrett Wilson. I don't necessarily want to say who I'm going to go with, because we kind of have to just react to what we're given. But as you can see here, we do have A.J. Brown, Bijan, and I will go with Bijan. A lot of people will tell you, hey, I don't know if you should necessarily go with the rookie running back, but man, those first-round picks at running back, this guy went number 8 overall. Those rookie running backs, more often than not, especially when in the top 10, have a legendary season. Think about Saquon Barkley. Think about Ezekiel Elliott. Less so Leonard Fournette, but granted, he still got a lot of volume with the Jaguars when he was playing for them. And I do expect a lot of the same for Bijan Robinson. As we know, the Falcons were the number 1 rushing team in the league last year. They led the league in running. They want to continue to run the ball. Everything they've done this offseason shows you they want to run the ball. They even signed Matt Collins at wide receiver, which, that's a wide receiver. So, hey, that has nothing to do with running. He's actually a really good run blocker as a wide receiver. So it's even showing you from the wide receiver aspect, they want to be able to run the ball. So I'm definitely going to go with Arthur Smith here. If you look at his time in Tennessee Titans, he fed Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's a freak in nature, and rightfully so. That's one of his best players, and of course, you're going to feed your best player the ball. And as you can see, we have pick 16 right here. It looks like Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown were stacked up. Nick Chubb and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So we have Devontae Adams. We have Jalen Waddle. I'm honestly going to go ahead and try to recreate the thumbnail for you guys. So we are going to go with Jalen Waddle. Let's see if we can get Lamar and Mark Andrews. I really doubt it because a lot of hype right now is being brought to the Ravens. Of course, they changed offensive coordinators. They moved over to Todd Monken. Everyone's talking about the pace that they're going to play at. They're going to throw the ball a lot more. Everyone's very high on Lamar. Everyone's very high on Mark Andrews. But we're just going to kind of wait ahead and see how this plays out. So we got Bijan, Jalen Waddle. We'll go ahead and show you the board. Beautiful. Yeah, so Bijan, Jalen Waddle. It's a decent start. It's actually the same start that I had to my first Dalmatian draft. So if you guys don't know, I'm very much deep into these Best Ball Mania streets. Best Ball in general. Not only have I already maxed out the DraftKings Millie Maker, I've already gotten it up to 100 BBM4 entries. So I'll let you guys go ahead and do the math on that, but we're definitely seriously invested. I've honestly maxed out every other contest that Underdog has came out with, aside from that Pomeranian, just because, we were just late to the party. So I see Tyreek with Saquon Barkley. Hopefully, the Tyreek owner does not go Mark Andrews because that would be a nice little bring back for them for that Week 17. But being that we have Bijan and Jalen Waddle, we 1,000% want that Lamar Mark Andrews stack. And that definitely would be elite with this team. I think Bijan has a very good opportunity to get number 1 overall. So let's kind of just see how this goes. 16 picks away. Interesting. So we see Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith go together. Unfortunately, he made the mistake of not going Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, which I personally would have done because, why not have that insane Bengals stack? Joe Burrow is projected to be the number 2 quarterback in terms of passing yards, in terms of passing touchdowns. So I want to be all in on the Bengals if that opportunity is presented to myself. Of course, if we were at the number 2 spot, that's absolutely how we would have started with Jamar Chase, but I would have followed it up with T. Higgins and then just taken whoever would have failed to me in the 3rd round. Because I do personally like to go with one of these elite running backs. And we can see here that guy at number 2, which is FK Analytics 29, actually went with Josh Jacobs, someone that I'm actually personally out on this year for 2 reasons. One, there's a very good chance that he does hold out on his contract. I do think he'll ultimately play, but nonetheless, I don't kind of want that bad blood. If he gets a little bit of an injury, maybe it's a little bit of a sprained ankle, I think he's more so incentivized to kind of sit that out and make sure it gets up to full health rather than kind of just risk it and put it on the line for the team because they don't necessarily have his best interest in mind. And, of course, as a running back, you have such a short career in the NFL, you definitely got to play to your best interest. So I do have a little hope right now. We have 3 picks before it's our turn. No Mark Andrews. Oh, there he goes. I just had to say it, right? We will go with Lamar Jackson if he is available to us, just because that Lamar and Jalen Waddle stack would be very nice. We see the Mahomes and Kelsey owner in front of us, so he's not necessarily going to take that pick. But there is a little bit of a question mark with A shorter 5, having Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor. I do think he needs to catch up at wide receiver, but anything goes in these streets. And let's see where he goes. We'll go Lamar. Little Jeopardy music going in the background. Just play it in your head. Looks like this is a very tough decision for this man right here. Might be actually a woman, but who knows? Nowadays, no one knows. Jerry Jeudy. That was a very interesting selection. Looks like he wanted to get the bring back for Austin Eckler, and we will happily take Lamar Jackson here. I'm not necessarily super high on Lamar. I honestly wouldn't be taking him here. I usually take him around either pick 12 just because I can go ahead and ensure myself that one, I have Lamar, but then two, in the later rounds, probably around round 8, round 9, or even round 7, I can actually go ahead and start stacking up those Ravens wide receivers. So I like to personally start off with Zay Flowers, then I'll work my way down to Rashad Bateman. And of course, lastly, I will go with OBJ. I'm not necessarily someone that's completely out on OBJ. They clearly paid him a lot of money because they believe that he has an opportunity to really impact that offense. He's very class in terms of his route running. I mean, that's something that we've already known. He's a very great route runner. And I know a lot of people are scared because this is his second ACL that he's torn. But nonetheless, they definitely see something in him in terms of paying him that top dollar. So let's kind of see how it shakes out. And just to let you guys know, we started off with Bijan Robinson, followed it up with Jalen Waddle, and then followed that up with Lamar Jackson. So we are very interested to see what we will have fall to us at round 4. And we will be doing 2 of these poodle drafts. So not only are we going to do this draft, we are going to do another draft. I was considering multi-tabling them because I am a very fast-paced person. But I don't necessarily believe that that's going to provide you guys the best viewing experience. So nonetheless, I do want to go ahead and move one at a time. And we are waiting to see, just to show you guys the board. I'm sorry here. I am actually on my laptop for the first time. So let's go ahead and zoom out. Maybe that gives you guys a little bit of a better view. Typically, I would do this on my monitors. I have 2 monitors to my right. But I think it's a little bit better for the camera experience to actually just be face-to-face here. Wow, Aaron Jones. That's a crazy pick. You could definitely avoid it maybe a round and then got Aaron Jones. But nonetheless, to each their own. So we got Calvin Ridley. We have Keenan Allen on the board. Also have Jahmyr Gibbs. But I'm not necessarily interested at running back right now because we do have Bijan. We do plan for him to hold it down. I am going to go ahead and move forward with Keenan Allen. I do believe that the Dolphins play the Chargers in week 15. So that's the first round of the playoffs. So a little correlation there. I'm very much into correlation. So as you can see, Lamar Jackson with Jalen Waddle, that's a week 17 correlation. And I do believe Waddle and the Chargers would also be a week 15 correlation. So let me actually go ahead and pull up the Dolphins schedule because that actually would be very nice to know and confirm. Dolphins 2023 schedule. And if you guys are wondering, like, wow, why does this guy actually know the week 15 matchup? I've done a lot of drafts, so a lot of these things matter to me. And I'm actually incorrect here. The Dolphins do not play them first. They actually do go ahead and play the Titans. Excuse me, the Jets. So they play the Jets week 15. They play the Cowboys week 16. And, of course, they play the Ravens in week 17. But honestly, that didn't impact our selection in any way. I do like Keenan Allen a little bit more than Calvin Ridley, just from a security standpoint. I know the chemistry between Justin Herbert. I know the chemistry with him and Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's a route god. He just gets open out of the slot, man. So Quentin Johnson being on the outside, Mike Williams being on the outside, both having the opportunity to take the top off the defense. I do believe Keenan Allen has an opportunity to thrive from the slot, as he usually does. Let's go ahead and pull up this draft board again. It's a pretty solid start. Quarterback, running back, 2 wide receivers. So if you guys know, on Underdog, wide receivers fly off the board like crazy. So you definitely want to get pretty much ahead of the curve. I like to personally have at least 5 wide receivers through the first 8 or 9 rounds because as you get later into the draft, it definitely gets pretty ugly from that point on. You're definitely taking flyers and really guys that have a chance to spike one week, but really not provide you any sort of consistency throughout the season. Of course, in best ball, we are looking for those spike weeks because our lineups are optimized to play our highest scoring players. But at the same time, I do want guys that are going to score more often than not. I don't really want to be taking zeros for 17 weeks of the season, and maybe they had 1 spike week on week 2 and then never really heard from them again because that's not really helping my team too much. So we definitely want those wide receivers that have the opportunity to do that early and often. And we could see, I would have definitely taken TJ Hawkinson. So I'm not necessarily a J.K. Dobbins guy. I am an Ohio State fan, so that's kind of weird to say. But with that being said, I will go ahead and pair him up with Lamar. It's like kind of a little bit of an inverse correlation there. But if you're betting on the regular season, if you're looking at the totality of the 17 weeks, if you believe that the Ravens are going to be a great offense, J.K. Dobbins is going to get his fair share of opportunities. Maybe later we go ahead and revisit with Gus Edwards. So I'm not necessarily the biggest handcuff person, but I do know at least the former regime, and that's Greg Roman, They definitely love to use running backs a lot. So you saw a lot of volume for JK. You saw a lot of volume, at least back in 2021 for Gus Edwards. 2020 because Gus Edwards tore his ACL in 2021. But they definitely like to run the ball. And I don't really think that's going to change as much as people might think. I think Harbaugh still has that in his DNA. He definitely wants to kill the clock a little bit, definitely wants to rest up that defense, especially because I don't think the Ravens defense is going to be immaculate. I think there'll be a decent defense. They have Roquan Smith. They have Patrick Queen at linebackers. But nonetheless, those corners are a little shaky outside of Marlon Humphrey. Last year, if you definitely wanted to play the wide receivers going against the Ravens, you had a lot of success. So I would say keep that in mind. Kind of just waiting for these next two picks. We have Lamar, Bijan Robinson, J.K. Dobbins, Jalen Waddle, Keenan Allen. And now we have a little bit of a decision. So ideally, I'd love to actually hit Jackson Smith and Jigba and Tyler Lockett on that 5-6 turn, just because I'm very much in on the Seahawks this year. I feel like that combination right there is almost a little bit of a cheat code. But of course, I got to have to pick between the two. I'm going to go with JSN. Once again, I'm an Ohio State guy. Now we have two Ohio State players. We got J.K. Dobbins. We have JSN. I do personally think that Lockett might have a little bit of a better season. But when we're talking about coming down the stretch, we're talking about those fantasy playoffs. I do believe JSN will kind of emerge as one of the top tier options, not only on this team, but actually in the league because he's a very good player. He is also a little bit of a route god. Of course, he's still got to earn that title. No one's saying like day one in the league, he's a top 10 route runner in the NFL. But I do think he's going to kind of surprise people a little bit. He didn't play last year at Ohio State. It's a little bit of a bummer for us because I definitely think we would have beat Georgia, especially if Marvin Harrison Jr. never got concussed in that game. Don't want to really talk about that one. But really, if you look at the whole season, having JSN in addition to the weapons that we had in Emeka Egbuka, Marvin Harrison, and of course, CJ Stroud slinging the ball, he would have definitely put in some work. So if you look at the year before where he really did play and where he really cemented himself as, honestly, a top-tier caliber wide receiver coming out for the draft, he was playing with Chris Olave. He was playing with Garrett Wilson, who were two rookies who really impressed a lot of people in a big way. He was outproducing them. They had about 1,000, 1,100 yards respectively. JSN had about 1,600 yards. Granted, 300 of those came within the Rose Bowl when he torched Utah. If you guys haven't seen that game, strongly recommend because that man was absolutely cooking. And I actually do think he's going to do the same thing in the league, especially when you have DK on the outside, who's honestly a threat to go deep every single time he touches the ball. And, of course, Tyler Lockett, Mr. Reliable, someone that's going to go ahead and make sure you get about 10, 12 yards on the catch. Really not going to try to do too much after the catch. If you guys have seen, I saw this meme where people were like, yo, Tyler Lockett just spams the A button when he makes a catch. I'm not sure if you guys play Madden. But essentially, that's a possession catch. You catch the ball and you immediately go down. You avoid the big hits. And that's honestly why he's able to be available in the fields, kind of avoiding those injury risks. But JSN, that's the guy. I would have loved to have stacked up JSN and Tyler Lockett so that later on we could have got Geno Smith because I feel like we would have been done at two quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Geno Smith, with those two pass catchers. But nonetheless, we will go ahead and hit some Ravens wide receivers when we do get on the clock in 6 picks. So right now on the board, we have Dameon Pierce, Kyle Pitts, Gabe Davis, DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, and Quentin Johnston, all players that I'm honestly kind of looking to avoid just right now for this particular team. Not players I'm looking to avoid for the season, but just for right now. So we will go ahead and just queue up Zay Flowers because that's my personal top dog for the Ravens offense. And then we'll follow that up with Rashad Bateman if the opportunity presents itself. And I guess I'm going to have to do the classic YouTuber pitch for you guys. But if you guys don't mind, please go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. It really will help and it will definitely motivate me a lot more to create more content for you guys. I've been creating some shorts. They're definitely fun. But that's not necessarily where I really want to focus in on. I do believe I can provide you guys some value in terms of strategy, giving you some different sorts of thinking compared to more so the group think that I see a lot on Twitter. A lot of people are just regurgitating the same kind of analysis. We try to definitely be a little bit different, a little bit more energetic. So let's go ahead and move forward with Zay Flowers. Welcome to the team, sir. We have Lamar Jackson. We have Bijan Robinson, J.K. Dobbins, Jalen Waddle, Keenan Allen, JSN, and Zay Flowers. So we know rookies definitely pop, especially down the stretch. And that's what we're looking to do with this team, is really take off down the stretch. So we have our Ravens bet in. We got Lamar, J.K., and Zay Flowers. It would have been nice to have had Mark Andrews, but nonetheless, you can't have everything you want all the time. So we'll just be patient here, waiting for Rashad Bateman. I know a lot of people are concerned right now with the foot just because he had a cortisone shot a couple weeks ago. But if we saw Travis Etienne, he came back from this Frank. He was explosive. I actually think Travis Etienne is someone I'm a little bit higher on than most people, because I do think he's going to build upon that last season. Like I said, he was coming off an injury, and he still put up over 1,000 yards. So for the year under his belt, not being what I would consider a rookie anymore, of course, that came through his second year, but really was a rookie year because he didn't play his first year at all since he had that Liz Frank injury roughly in training camp preseason. I definitely think Rashad Bateman, because his injury was so early, is kind of on that same track where he'll be perfectly fine for the start of the season. And even if we have a little bit of concern, maybe week 2, week 3, week 4, those remaining weeks down the stretch, those are what we're really taking them for. And so I see Isaiah Pacheco, Deshaun Watson, Brandon Cooks, and Dalvin Cook all in front of us. So hopefully these next 2 picks made by Zach789 and Dapper Dabber definitely don't include Rashad Bateman, because that would be a little bit of a gut punch. Nonetheless, we'll survive. And if they do take Rashad, we could even stack up with Tua. I know someone like Justin Herzig's not necessarily a fan of having your quarterbacks game stacked, but if you actually look at it for the totality of the season, especially going back to last year when Tua was healthy, he was absolutely slinging the ball and racking up a bunch of fantasy points. So I definitely think he can do the same thing this year. He's got a year under his belt, the Mike McDaniel offense. The Dolphins are an explosive team. Of course, you have Tyreek Hill, you have Jalen Waddle, which respectively, they can just take a slant, take it all the way to the house. That's a lot of the points. So as you can see, we're on the clock, and we do have Rashad Bateman available to us. I will not go ahead and provide Tua with Jalen Waddle. Instead of that stack, we will go ahead and just double down on the Ravens. So we have Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, Zay Flowers, and Rashad Bateman. So I think I'm pretty good on the Ravens. I don't need any more of them. And I have that Week 17 bring back in terms of Jalen Waddle. I do believe in Week 16, we have the San Francisco 49ers. So that will be a team I look to try and get some exposure to. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Deebo Samuel are all long gone. But someone like Elijah Mitchell would not be a bad idea for this team, especially since I only have 2 running backs. And if McCaffrey gets hurt, Elijah Mitchell becomes a borderline RB1, definitely an RB2. And honestly, he even has a role without Christian McCaffrey. If you look back to last year, he was still producing. So he was definitely getting some carries. And it's not that they necessarily relegated McCaffrey to a lesser role. It's just that they involved him a little bit more in the passing attack, which obviously he's very proficient in, and kind of took away a little bit of the carries, which, of course, when you invest in Christian McCaffrey, which they did by trading for him at the deadline, they want to make sure that they have him for the playoffs. And as we see, they got pretty far in the playoffs, but an unfortunate Brock Purdy injury kind of ended their season before it really had a chance to go ahead and battle the Eagles head on. So let's actually go ahead and take a look at the Ravens schedule for 2023, since we have a pretty good bet on the Ravens. And if we take a look, like I said, we have the Dolphins in Week 17. We have the 49ers in Week 16. And we actually have the Jaguars in Week 15. So it's kind of funny because now I kind of regret not taking Calvin Ridley instead of actually taking Keenan Allen instead. But we'll survive. We do have the opportunity to take Zay Jones or Evan Ingram if they fall to us. Let's see where the Trevor Lawrence drafter is, because he will definitely take that stab before we get a chance. And Trevor Lawrence went at essentially for the first round or first overall pick player, which is, and that's a failing stream, huh? LDO852. And he actually takes our boy Tua Tagovailoa, so that's not too bad for us because hopefully he doesn't have Evan Ingram in tow. Yes, he passed. So fingers crossed we get Evan Ingram to fall to us because we don't have a tight end. Of course, we would have wanted Mark Andrews. Like I said, can't have everything you want. We will gladly take Evan Ingram if he falls to us, and it'll definitely be a couple picks past ADP. So it won't be necessarily too unique because I do expect that if someone doesn't have Trevor Lawrence, they're really not going to be excited to take Evan Ingram. But nonetheless, we will absolutely take him. And I'm not even the biggest Evan Ingram fan, but in terms of just roster construction for this team, we definitely will need him. Now, it's not a must. I don't have to fill out this tight end slot. I'm very glad to kind of just pass over tight end until like the later rounds. I know a lot of people like the 3 late tight ends. I honestly just take the best value on the board. So if tight end is the best value, I will go ahead and take them. I don't really care about the correlation. But in this regard, Evan Ingram goes. We kind of did. Fortunately, it's over for us. We're not going to get Evan Ingram. So we kind of shift gears. We're on to Zay Jones if the opportunity presents itself. Now, I will not reach for Zay Jones. I will only take him if he falls to us, not on our next pick, but a little bit later in the 10th round. Let's go ahead and look at the board. Ooh. Yeah, so I'm probably not even going to take Zay Jones. If we switch over to wide receivers, he's about pick 121. Definitely know that that's not going to be at pick 112. Our next pick will be pick 129, so we won't really have the opportunity to take him there either. Now, of course, it's not a necessity to take Zay Jones to have that week 15 correlation, and that's honestly kind of, for a lot of people, even Galaxy branding it, like, I'm just going to take the best available player. Now, it'll be interesting if Odell falls to us at our next pick, because I thought I was done with the Ravens, but having Zay, Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham, that could be kind of nice. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Especially with JK. But like I said, we'll just take the value on the board. I don't really like Alvin Kamara. I don't like his situation right now. So we are going to go with a player that's at least within the division for them. And I am going to go with David Njoku. I love the Browns this year. If you guys are not in on Deshaun Watson, I feel sorry for you guys because he is my most drafted quarterback. I'm a strong believer in Deshaun, whether you guys like him or not. I know all about his off-the-field stuff. If we're talking about the player on the field, that guy produces. I know you guys are going to say, oh, but he looked terrible last year. Guys, he hadn't played in about, let's say, about a year and 3 quarters. He was just getting back into a team. Every other player had been playing football for about 12 weeks. This guy finally came in out of the blue. Give him some time, a.k.a. give him this offseason. Give him some experience under his belt with Kevin Stefanski, how he likes to call plays, how they're setting up the offense now because they traded for Elijah Moore. So now they have Amari Cooper. They have Donovan Peoples-Jones. They got Elijah Moore. They got David Njoku. So they got some passing weapons for him. Personally, I do believe that they're the best passing weapons he's had in his career. Now, I know DeAndre Hopkins was an all-world wide receiver when he was playing with Deshaun Watson. And when they also had Will Fuller was pretty explosive. But the one thing with Will Fuller was it was also tough for him to stay on the field. So I do think from a consistency perspective and in terms of being well-rounded, the Browns are a much better situation. You look back at David Johnson, even before that, a little bit of Aaron Foster, and you look at a situation now with Nick Chubb, who's criminally underappreciated in the league, but he's definitely a monster at running back. I definitely see a lot of opportunity for a lot of points in that offense. And so as we can see, we do still have Odell there. So at 112, I will take him. That will be at his ADP. You can see some values, and actually I might actually have to consider Pat Freiermuth because I do like 3 tight ends no matter what. I kind of do stick to 3 tight ends, so 2-5-8-3, 2-6-7-3. Those are definitely roster constructions I look forward to using just because they do provide you a lot of plus EV, or should I say expected value, and they're very strong in terms of advance rates, which at the end of the day, you can play for the regular season, but I'm trying to advance for the playoffs and ultimately win it there. Oh, man. Pat Freiermuth or Odell Beckham. That's going to be tough, right? We're 1-2-5-1 right now. Yeah, we're just going to go for the Ravens super stack. I know we don't have Mark Andrews, but this is how we get a little bit of that exposure back. So if you are going to be someone like me right now, kind of being a sheep and reading into the offseason storyline of, wow, they're going to throw the ball a lot more. Well, you can clearly find a team right now that believes in that because we have Lamar. We have J.K. Dobbins. We have Zay Flowers. We have Rashad Bateman, and we have Odell Beckham Jr. We have the 3 top wide receivers on the Ravens, not the top 3 pass catchers because you would definitely put Andrews number 1. And, of course, we have some inverse correlation. Hopefully Lamar maybe throws a little screen pass to J.K. Dobbins. I know he crushed me last year when I was playing the Lamar J.K. Dobbins owner in week 5. Definitely crushed me when they were playing against the Bills. I think it was 2 screens to J.K. Dobbins or 2 little checkdowns, and he scored on them. Absolutely ended my week that week. The worst part about it was we put a head-to-head wager on it, so I knew really fast that we lost that wager. And I have a question from the chat from GT Sport. 1, thank you for joining. And then 2, let's go ahead and answer this. What's up, bro? Do you use the same stack strategy for redraft? So I do and I don't. So it's kind of interesting because it's something I find myself battling through right now. I I have the number 2 pick in my big money league, my home league, which is with all my college boys. So I already know Justin Jefferson's going number 1. If you just look at last year, I can already tell you that everyone's salivating at the opportunity to take him at number 1, especially in my league because we're kind of moving away. And it traditionally used to be a league dominated by running backs. I mean, the whole first round used to be essentially predicated by running backs. But now the boys are kind of understanding, like, oh, wow, we can kind of find running back value later and really hammer out these wide receivers. And that's honestly the same methodology being applied right now to best ball. So me personally, at number 2, if Justin Jefferson goes number 1, I'm going to go Jamar Chase. And I'm very excited for the opportunity to take T. Higgins in round 2. And then, honestly, it's going to be a little bit weird. I'd probably take Joe Burrow round 4, maybe even round 5. I don't really know how it's going to work in redraft. I haven't done those rankings yet. I also haven't really done too many mock drafts in ESPN because that's what the boys like to use, where Joe Burrow is essentially ranked. But, yeah, I would essentially like to team stack. I like the Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase proposition. Like I said earlier, Joe Burrow is the number 2 projected quarterback in terms of passing yards and passing touchdowns. If you look at Mike Clay's projections, that's what he has. If you look to a lot of other sites, that's what they also have. So I do think because that offense is going to be so good, and I definitely can foresee Joe Burrow maybe scoring 40, 45, 50 touchdowns passing, who do you think is going to be the main beneficiaries of those? Jamar Chase, T. Higgins for sure. Those are the top 2 options. I'm not necessarily someone that's very high on Tyler Boyd, so kind of would avoid him. And I have been a little bit throughout the draft season. So in terms of my redraft leagues, it has to be a great team. So the Chiefs, that's a little bit murkier because, of course, you have your Mahomes, you have your Kelsey. You, of course, want to stack those. In terms of team stacking, like, I don't know if I'd want to take Kadarius Toney in redraft with already having Mahomes and Kelsey. Now, don't get me wrong. Mahomes doesn't throw a lot of touchdowns. I just don't know exactly who they're going to go to besides Kelsey. We are on the clock right now. We're at a 1-2-6-1. Lamar, Bijan, J.K. Dobbins. I do need a running back. I don't necessarily need it, but I will take a running back. And I actually will take Jamal Williams here. I feel like a lot of people are down on Jamal Williams, like, oh, like what he did last year is not sustainable. He had 18 rushing touchdowns, and a lot of them came from the 1-yard line. And you're not wrong. But, hey, the Saints just paid him. Obviously, everyone's talking about, oh, running backs don't matter anymore. Well, look at the running backs that did get paid. Miles Sanders is one of them. Jamal Williams is definitely another one of them as well. We don't really know what the Alvin Kamara situation is right now. He could be suspended for 4 games. He could be suspended for 6, 8, or he could be suspended indefinitely until there's a resolution on that case. We just don't know. And in terms of this right now, I kind of want to go with more of a sure thing, especially because we're out this early. And also, this is a time box contest. What I mean by that is this will definitely expire, let's say within the next 3 days, because it's really filling up super fast, versus something like Best Ball Mania, where if I wait a little longer to draft Alvin Kamara, we'll definitely get a lot more clarity in regards to his situation. I believe his court date is scheduled for July 30th or July 31st. So one of those 2 dates, but definitely at the end of the month. So give it a week or so, and we'll definitely get a little bit more clarity into his situation. So for right now, I'm going to take a sure thing, but as we wait for later, we can definitely kind of change that thought. So we're at a 1-3-6-1. Like I said, I want to take wide receivers early because a lot of people do like to take them fast and furious. On top of that, there is scarcity in terms of guaranteed production. I do have 3 Ravens receivers, so I definitely will be going with the 8 receiver build because I do envision some weeks where Lamar maybe only throws a touchdown to 1 receiver and a lot to Mark Andrews. So just because we have all the wide receivers doesn't guarantee anything. I'm going to be a little different here. I'm going to go ahead and take Khalil Herbert. Not necessarily someone that I have a lot of exposure to. Like I said, I like to take the sure thing. And, of course, as we get to training camp, we'll get a lot more insight into what the real pecking order is between Deontay Foreman, Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson. I do think people are kind of sleeping on Khalil Herbert. Now, I'm sure a lot of people know about the rushing yards over expectation, where Khalil Herbert is an absolute monster. If you go ahead and look at those charts, I promise you that guy's outperforming every time he touches the ball. But nonetheless, the Bears added some competition. Of course, they signed Deontay Foreman. They drafted Roschon Johnson in the 4th round. So they're not necessarily completely sold on him being like their lead back. I'd hope that he definitely takes the lead job, especially since we just drafted him on this team. But I'm not banking on that, unfortunately. So kind of have to wait and see how that goes. We're currently at a 1-4-6-1. This is half PPR. So like I said, there's a wide receiver craze. But at the same time, don't devalue your running backs because all they need is a touchdown to be viable week to week. So with this build in particular, I probably will go with a 2-5-8-3. I love having 3 tight ends. In this case, consider 1 tight end that's on the verge of becoming an elite tight end. If you look at what David Njoku was doing last year before he got injured, man was definitely producing for you, especially in PPR. He was racking up a lot of points. Unfortunately, he had a high ankle sprain, so that kind of made him miss a couple weeks, and of course takes away a little bit of that explosion that they have. But we have a full offseason for him to get reacclimated and get healthy again. So hopefully going into next year, especially with some more chemistry with Deshaun Watson, they're able to get it banging from the start. Oh, so it looks like the sound went out. Hopefully it's good now. Fingers crossed it's good now. Let's see. Yeah, it's showing all good from my side. So hopefully you guys can still hear me. Wow, I just realized that we must have clicked the button on our mic because it definitely did go out. So there probably was a lot that I just said that you guys didn't capture. And, this is a learning process for us, guys. It's our first stream. I'm perfectly comfortable with it. So let me kind of just give you the fast track on everything that we were doing. So we do have 3 Ravens wide receivers: Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham. Of course, we would have loved Mark Andrews, but we don't have him. Lamar Jackson and J.K. Dobbins. Right now, we are at a 1-4-6-1 build. We will be essentially looking for a 2-5-8-3. So with that 2-5-8-3, I already have 4 solid running backs. Probably just wait till the last round, maybe the last 2 rounds to go ahead and take a running back. And we will continue to hammer wide receiver if the opportunity presents itself, which I don't necessarily see one right now that I like. I'm going to go ahead and move forward with. Yeah, wide receiver is very bare right now. So that's why I tell you guys, you better hammer them early, especially within those first, let's say, 100, 120 picks, because after that, it's a huge drop off. We're going to go ahead and proceed with Roschon Johnson. So I'm not necessarily a fan of stacking my running backs, or should I say handcuffing them. But I was mentioning earlier, we don't really have too much clarity on Roschon Johnson, Khalil Herbert, or Deontay Foreman. So that's very muddy backfield. But nonetheless, I have 2 shots at the backfield now. So unless Deontay Foreman just surprises everyone and just becomes the top dog and the workhorse in that offense, we'll be perfectly fine. So Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson, I don't really care who wins out of the 2 in training camp. There's been a little bit of buzz of Roschon Johnson being that 3rd down back. He was a great pass protector at Texas last year. Of course, he's overshadowed a little bit by Bijan. We teamed them up once again. We have Bijan and Roschon on the team. But nonetheless, our computer's going to die. And you guys are seeing almost everything that you shouldn't be doing on the stream, which is hilarious. But nonetheless, like I said, it is a learning opportunity for us. So going forward, they're going to definitely be a lot smoother and hopefully of higher quality. So really quick, we just went with Marvin Mims. We're a little bit under the gun there, but nonetheless, I do need a wide receiver. Like I said to you guys, wide receivers go fast and furious. So we are 1-5-7-1. We have the ultimate Raven stack in terms of Lamar, J.K. Dobbins, and the top 3 wide receivers, Mark Andrews. We have our 5 running backs. We're definitely not going to take another running back because I feel pretty good about having Bijan, J.K., Jamal Williams, Khalil Herbert, and Roschon. I don't care about who wins in the Bears backfield as long as it's not Deontay Foreman. If we look at our wide receivers, we got Jalen Waddle, which will be that Week 17 bring back for the Ravens. We have Keenan Allen, who's definitely going to be a target hog for Justin Herbert, already established chemistry. We're going to have JSN, who's going to be a phenomenal rookie. We have, of course, those 3 aforementioned Ravens receivers. And then we just drafted Marvin Mims, who I do believe has some home run potential. I do believe Russ is going to go ahead and utilize him. Kind of interesting to see what that pecking order becomes because I know there's a lot of hype in regards to Tim Patrick being the best offensive wide receiver on that team. But nonetheless, they still do have Jerry Jeudy. They still do have Cortland Sutton. And, of course, now Marvin Mims is added to the mix. So I do ultimately believe Marvin Mims initially starts off as the 4th wide receiver. But as the season goes on, injuries take a toll. He definitely has an opportunity to expand his role and hit some home runs for Russ. And we know Russ can throw a deep ball. So all I need is one 70-yard bomb for a touchdown, and Marvin Mims pays off. So hopefully that happens multiple times throughout the season and not just one time. But if it does happen one time, fingers crossed it's in the playoffs. And, of course, only have the 1 tight end, but I will be hitting 3 tight ends. That one I can promise you. So on this team, we're definitely going to go ahead and set up the 2-5-8-3. let's go ahead and take a look at our quarterback options. It's pretty grim at quarterback, but nonetheless, I am, as I said, an Ohio State fan. So I do have a lot of faith in CJ, and we will proceed with CJ. So I know that the sound went out. That was about 8 minutes ago. We kind of fixed it. So fingers crossed, it's a lot better now. Hopefully I wasn't talking for too long until I caught that, or really until it was pointed out. And we'll definitely kind of edit that. So when I do my 60-second short recap of all the draft picks, we'll definitely add that in there so it's not as bad. But like I said, guys, please like and subscribe. We're going to have a lot more of this content out there for you guys. Some tips, some tricks. As you can see, this is not only streaming on my channel, Fantasy Football Shorts Network, but also the IDP Army, which my co-host Jordan will be doing a lot more content for you guys. You should have a stream out there on Thursday or Friday, kind of walking through some best ball basics. So definitely stay tuned for that. If you're someone that's kind of newer to the best ball scene and you're kind of just watching some other streamers and like, yo, what the hell are they talking about, bro? And like I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, last year in terms of BBM 3, which is Best Ball Mania 3, I had a 27.67% advance rate. The typical number is about 17%, so about 10% plus on the field. And I definitely look to extrapolate that to this season. One of the roster constructions that I had a lot of success with was the 2-5-8-3. As we can see, CJ Stroud went ahead of us. So that's a little bit of a bummer. But nonetheless, I will take Sam Howell. He projects to be the Washington the Commies starting quarterback. So I don't have any Washington pass catchers right now to stack them up with. But I do have a little bit of a sleeper at tight end. Not necessarily a sleeper, but someone that's kind of being overlooked. And that is going to be Sir Logan Thomas. Let's just go ahead and add him to the queue so I don't forget about him. Like I told you guys, I'm a big believer in the 2-5-8-3. That was actually the one roster construction that saw the most success out of all my teams. You did have some instances of like a 2-6-7-3, a 2-5-9-2, and I will be sharing an article on my Substack that covers all of my advancing teams last year. Unfortunately, we didn't get any to the final round, and that's why I say team stacking and the bring back correlation is very important because that's something I didn't necessarily do enough of last year. I did it to some of the teams, but not enough to the degree where I would have felt comfortable. So that's definitely been a huge emphasis point, not only on my underdog drafts, but of course my DraftKings drafts. Like I said, I've maxed out the Millie Maker on DraftKings and all the other contests that they had there. I think they just released I believe it's called the Hot Route, which is a $100 3-entry max. So I did the first iteration of it. I definitely have to do the second iteration of it. The $9 3-entry max, I've already went ahead and did the second version of that. But I will go ahead and stream the DraftKings ones because that's a completely different strategy. You have 20 picks in there. So as we can see, we have a 2-5-7-1 so far. I will eventually take another wide receiver, maybe start hammering out those tight ends now. The best value on the board would be Paris Campbell. So if you're really just kind of buying into the narrative of those Giants receivers kind of emerging, I'm going to actually go ahead and proceed with Mike Gesicki because I did say I'm going to go with 3 tight ends. I think Patriots just signed Gesicki, so they're definitely incentivized to give him a role. Why else would you sign the guy? Bill Belichick's kind of always been an admirer of him. And not only that, but he's going to be a big slot receiver for them. We already know that they have Hunter Henry, so he's a little bit more of a blocker, or at least he's more of a complete tight end in the sense that he can, of course, block and, of course, catch the ball. So he's definitely a red zone threat. But if you're adding Gesicki to your team, Gesicki is not known for his blocking. So they definitely want to utilize him as a receiver. There's a little bit of question marks right now around Juju Smith-Schuster in terms of his knee. Of course, at the end of last year with the Chiefs, Juju kind of had to manage that knee injury. So I do foresee some weeks or a really high re-injury risk for Juju. And I actually will get my league doctor. So in our fantasy football league with my college buddies, we do have a doctor. We have a couple doctors in the league, but he more so specializes in like the fantasy football injuries. So I will try to get a stream in the future with him because he can definitely provide you guys a lot of insight. Now, how much is he actually going to share? I'm not sure it's going to really be too much, only because we're also competitors in our league. And I know for a fact I've already asked him about Cooper Kupp if he's got any concerns. He's a huge Rams fan, and he's just keeping his lips silent. So in terms of that, not promising, but nonetheless, you definitely don't want to give your league mates an edge. Hey, shout out to my boy in the chat. You're killing it. Best Ball Bros for life. Yes, sir. We're definitely the Best Ball Bros, and we definitely have a lot coming out for you guys. So a lot of yin, a lot of yang. We're not always going to agree with each other. We're going to have some differing takes. But honestly, who likes a yes man? I mean, some people do, some egoists, But nonetheless, you've got to have a little bit of that fire in the ice, that push in the pool. I might take a stand on, let's say, Tyler Conklin. Actually, my homie likes Tyler Conklin as well. Let me find a better player. Okay, Deontay Johnson. We actually were just differing about this yesterday. He's not in on Deontay Johnson at all, and that's someone I'm a little bit more so in on this year. Actually, he's my number 2 most drafted wide receiver just because of the value he provides. And I do believe he has the opportunity to kill it for the Steelers. If you look at when Kenny Pickett became the starter down the stretch last year, he was out-targeting George Pickens by quite a margin. And I actually do think that's a testament to the kind of players Kenny Pickett likes. If you think about his time at Pittsburgh, who was the Blitnikoff winner for Kenny Pickett? It was Jordan Addison, who just got drafted by the Minnesota Vikings, my Minnesota Vikings. So he does like that slot receiver, the guy that can get open for him, that can also stretch the field. Deontay Johnson's very athletic, so I do see a lot of big things for Deontay and Kenny Pickett. Nonetheless, George Pickens will also have a role. And let's go ahead and see. Man, I love Tyler Conklin. This is such a crazy value. But nonetheless, I do have to stack up Sam Howell with Logan Thomas because otherwise we kind of just wasted a pick on Sam Howell. Let's just go back to the wide receiver. Well, I'm going to go with my boy Mecole Hardman. So, of course, I think it's a sure thing with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Completely new situation. We know for sure Garrett Wilson will be the top dog in that pecking order. Now, everything behind that, we're not so sure of. So, of course, they signed Allen Lazard. That's his boy from the Packers. I do think the easy bet is to put Lazard at number 2. But now it gets really murky in terms of, is it going to be Tyler Conklin? Is it going to be Corey Davis? Or is it going to be Mecole Hardman? I'm not necessarily betting on a clear winner out of that. I will say that the Jets are a little bit more married to Mecole Hardman because they really just signed him. Why else would you sign a guy if you're not going to use him? Going back to that Mike Gesicki argument. And Mecole Hardman, it was part of the Legion of Zoom. Yep, the Chiefs, they called themselves the Legion of Zoom between Tyreek, Mecole, because they were both very fast dudes that run in the 4.3s. And he has the opportunity to take a simple slant and take it all the way to the house. So we have a lot of home run hitters on the team. And honestly, through best ball, that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for those spike weeks, you're looking for the guys that can deliver one week. Sure, they might not deliver the next week, but that's why we play the highest scores on our team week in and week out, where we might not have to really consider them every single week. So with this 18th pick, of course, we are going to go with Logan Thomas. Granted, he doesn't get sniped from us, which is definitely a possibility. A little bit too more of wild cards. Hopefully this guy doesn't adopt a 2.673, and he goes with 3.672 with Trey Lance, which is kind of ugly in my mind. Because I don't think Trey Lance is going to be a factor for them at all. If you have Sam Darnold, who's essentially failed everywhere he's gone, now some of that, of course, isn't necessarily his fault because the Jets did not provide him with the best opportunity to succeed. But Trey Lance is in a heated battle with Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy, the undrafted Mr. Irrelevant, excuse me, not undrafted, but Mr. Irrelevant is over here leading the team to the conference championship game. Man, that must say that you're not that great. Granted, he got hurt last year, man, so I don't want to bash him too hard, but, you know, he should have this job signed, sealed, and delivered, and he unfortunately just does not. I reportedly view Brock Purdy as the leader in the clubhouse. Thankfully, I was taking a lot of Brock Purdy early on in Best Ball Mania, as well as the puppy. So, you know, got some closing line value there. What that means is he was drafted, let's say, round 18. And by the time Best Ball Mania starts to close up, he's around round 14, round 13. We got this guy 5 rounds later than everyone else. So the teams that spent a premium pick on Brock Purdy later on are going to definitely be more disadvantaged compared to a team like mine that had him in the 18th round. That's very similar for someone like Ty Chandler. Like I said, I'm a Vikings fan. So I was hammering Ty Chandler early on because we already knew Dalvin Cook was going to get cut. That was kind of just a formality, so we were just waiting for the actual cut to happen. And it's kind of funny because once that cut happened, you see Alexander Madison jump up. Now there's a little bit more interest into Ty Chandler, but we're really using our third eye. You guys definitely could have foreseen that. So pretty much we're done with this draft. We had the 2-5-8-3. Let me recap it real quick before we hop into another draft. We have Lamar Jackson, Sam Howell. Of course, we have a premium quarterback in Lamar, so I don't really care as much about my number 2 quarterback because I'm betting on Lamar and the Ravens to be that dude and that team. Next, let's go to our running backs. We got Bijan Robinson, J.K. Dobbins, Jamal Williams, Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson. So I have 2 stabs at the Bears backfield. Maybe Khalil Herbert becomes the early down grounder. So that's first down, second down. He's hitting home runs. He's really carrying the rock. And then come third down, passing down situations. We got Roshan either pass blocking or sneaking out for a little pass in the flat or even a little angle check down route. We move on to our wide receivers. We definitely have some home run hitters, but also some consistency. So we have Jalen Waddle, Keenan Allen, JSN, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham, Marvin Mims, and also Mecole Hardman. And lastly, with our 3 tight ends, we have David Njoku, Mike Gesicki, and Logan Thomas. All 3 dudes that project for volume. Logan Thomas, if you guys remember, actually it's on a really fat contract for the Commanders at that tight end position. Unfortunately, had a really bad knee injury. First he tore his ACL and an MCL. Or actually, first he tore his meniscus, then he tore his ACL. But nonetheless, he did come down the stretch a little bit with a little bit of a heater. Granted, that was with Carson Wentz. I do expect some growth because now he's a little bit longer removed from that injury. So hopefully he can get back to being that Logan Thomas of old, that guy that they paid that big contract to. So that's some projectable volume there. Of course, we have Mr. Sam Howell, Logan Thomas as the 2 stacks for the Commanders. And then if we look at the Ravens, we have Lamar, J.K. Dobbins, and the 3 wide receivers. And then as well, we have that Jalen Waddle bring back. Do I really need a bring back for the Commanders? I didn't particularly think so. If I did get a bring back, it would have been a 49ers players. I did mention that I wanted Elijah Mitchell earlier. It would have been perfect too because the Ravens played the 49ers in week 16. So kind of marrying the Commanders, the Ravens, and then also having that 49ers would have been kind of 4D chess move by having that week 16 and week 17 correlation. As always, can't always get what you want. So let's go ahead and hop in another Poodle draft. And enter that. Thank you. And if I just go back out real quick, you guys can see on my active, there's quite a few teams right here that have just kind of been slow drafts. I hate slow drafts personally, but I'm not going to be on the outside looking in. So let's actually give you guys a little bit of insight to what we're looking at. Oh, wow. So I actually haven't even picked yet. This is at the round 12. Actually, round 12. Pick 12. So round 1, 2 turn. And we're going to go ahead and move my boy Garrett Wilson. Yes, sir. Swipe. And we will also go Nick Chubb. He's been rising a lot in ADP. I don't really care because this isn't BBM4 where, you could have been getting Nick Chubb at the end of round 2, sometimes even at the start of round 3. This is the Poodle 3. It's time box. So this ADP for Nick Chubb is more reflective of his current value. And I don't necessarily have to worry about anyone getting Nick Chubb in the 3rd round because that's simply just not going to happen. So we have Nick Chubb. We have Garrett Wilson. We already have that week 17 correlation built in because the Browns are playing the Jets in week 17. We did it from the 1-2 turn. You might see some other players do that with CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown. But we actually went with a little bit of a different angle, and we did it with running back, wide receiver, Jets, and Browns. And here we go. We have pick number 9 on this low draft. And I think we're going to go ahead and proceed with A.J. Brown in this one. I'm probably not going to take Jalen Hurts. But once again, it kind of just depends on what falls to us. If it's a premium wide receiver, or even if Nick Chubb falls to us, we'll definitely hit that. If not, we might go with Jalen Hurts. Like I said, this is a time box contest. You might have some players that take A.J. Brown at pick number 3, or even pick number 4, pick number 2. So that way they can kind of get Jalen Hurts or Devontae Smith in rounds 2 and 3. So we are going to be at a little bit of a disadvantage compared to those teams. But I don't really think that's going to be common practice here. As you can see, with this second Poodle draft, we have the number 1 overall pick. We will be taking Justin Jefferson because I do think that's a no-brainer. Plus, I'm a Vikings fan, so that's kind of an easy homer pick. So a lot of people like to joke the influencer 101. I'm just going to say I've done a lot of drafts, so this is just kind of the variance that we get with it. And as you can see, I do have a red badge, so I promised myself I wasn't going to do a single weekly winners. It's just not a contest for me. To each their own. You guys might love the contest. I personally don't. You essentially have to be in the top 2.8% to see any cash. And that top 2.8%, you essentially have to be in that bottom. Let's say if you're in that bottom half, you're really only getting $10. Your entry fee is $15. And you're not guaranteed to see another cash throughout the whole season. So you might take a loss of $5. Granted, there's risk and reward. So if you're hitting that number 1 spot on the week, you are going to get $20,000. But like I said, top 2.8% cash, and then you can even take that to a way smaller fraction to become number 1. So I'm personally sitting that contest out, but I did actually do one. I did it with a Lamar Jackson team. That's funny enough. And that one draft I only did it because that was the only draft I needed to get this red badge. I had been on that gray badge for quite some time. And it's funny because I progressed to a gray badge roughly at the start of this drafting season. As you can see, we're already at the red badge now. And we're not even done with the drafting season. So kind of want to show you guys, because we do have some time in between picks, terms of completed, and we just go through our whole season. So we definitely have quite a few. We've maxed out every contest that we possibly could. Aside from the Mastiff, because I'm not going to participate in the $1,000 draft, I already have a lot of equity within these drafts. So I've gotten the max on the Dalmatian 2, $301 entries. The first Dalmatian was just a single entry, so we maxed that out. The Chow Chow, which was a contest I really liked, 15 entries, $50. I hope they make another one of these because I would definitely participate. That was a lot of fun, and if the Browns or the Seahawks were hit, I'm definitely going to be hitting in that one. Best Ball Mania 4. You have 150 bullets to fire at this one. I've already gone ahead and used 100, so I'm kind of just waiting till next month around this time. So second week of August, once we get a little bit more clarity through training camp, because inevitably there will be some injuries that happen in training camp, and then also going through the preseason, kind of just looking at people's roles. So that's when I'll fire my last 50 bullets. If we take a look at the Golden, I love my Golden team, so I would say I feel pretty good about winning that one. Maybe I'll show it in a moment. Of course, Poodle 3, we're at 11 entries. This will be number 12 once we finish this draft. But like I said, I have 15 slow drafts, and I'm definitely planning the rest of my day to go ahead and max out Poodle 3. So you'll see me, if you guys are hopping in these drafts, I'll be multi-tabling. So if you multi-table, we'll definitely be in a couple drafts together. Of course, already maxed out Poodle 2, maxed out the Poodle, maxed out Puppy 2, maxed out the Puppy, and I maxed out the Chihuahua. Also did the Chihuahua Superflex. Not necessarily a Superflex guy, so I'm kind of just going shots in the dark. I did have one team that progressed pretty far last year in the Puppy Superflex, but why not take another shot at it? That was thanks to my boy Justin Fields. So this is the draft that we just hopped into. We can see Justin Jefferson at number 1, pretty standard start, with Jamar Chase at number 2. Hopefully, this guy went with AJ Brown, Devontae Smith at pick number 8 and pick 17. I highly doubt Jalen Hurts is going to fall to him, but man, if this room allows that to happen, we're going to be in some trouble. And maybe that guy actually ends up being the Poodle 3 winner, unless, he fumbles the rest of his picks, which, I don't think I could do that if I had that great of a start. So we're about to be on the clock. We see a double running back start. I will try and go ahead and take 2 premium running backs if they fall to us. So I don't know why you guys are sleeping on Derrick Henry. That guy's a freak of nature. Yeah, you guys want to pass up Derrick Henry, don't worry about it. I'll be here to scoop all of that up. The guy's a freak of nature. So if people say, there's a running back age cliff, the guy's 29 years old, he's had a lot of wear and tear on his body. Dude, that guy didn't actually get the full workload to his 3rd season in the league. For whatever reason, he was in a timeshare the first 2 years. Timeshare with Deion Lewis, of all players. What do you know? We get Derrick Henry right here. We got Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson, and man, I would go Ramondre, but there's a little smoke right now about Dalvin Cook or Leonard Fournette going there. I'm not really a guy that wants to go for the timeshare. I could have went with the Lamar and Mark Andrews stack here, but I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of doing that at the 1-2 turn. Someone that gets Lamar and Mark Andrews at the 3 and 4 are definitely going to beat me. I'm actually going to go ahead and move forward with Josh Allen. Let me just go ahead and cue him up. That was almost very bad. I went ahead and queued up Josh Allen. So you might be saying, well, you don't have Stephon Diggs, so what are you doing? Well, I do have the opportunity to get Gabe Davis later. I can go ahead and get Dalton Kincaid later. I can also go ahead and add James Cook. And then you can also take a stab at someone like Khalil Shakir. You can take a stab at Deontay Hardy. Or you can take a stab at someone that a lot of people aren't mentioning, which I think has a better chance of making the roster for a real role than Deontay Hardy, which is Trent Sherfield, who did pretty decent for the Dolphins in his limited time with them. So the start so far is Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson. Now, granted, Josh Allen and Justin Jefferson do have the same bye week, week 13. So I will be very careful in terms of how I build out this Bill stack because I don't want to be overly leveraged to week 13. I'll even sometimes here at the 4-5 turn be able to get Justin Fields and DJ Moore. But the downside of that is they're also week 13 bye weeks. So I'm not really trying to have week 13 roll around and I don't have a quarterback playing. I'll do it very few instances just to be unique, but not necessarily something I'm ideally looking to do. So we'll kind of hold off on that. But of course, we'll just take whatever the board gives us and we'll just go ahead and pull that up for the moment. Let me go ahead and check the chat. And it's pretty stable right now. As always, thank you guys for joining. We have a lot more of this coming up for you guys, not only on my channel, but also the IDP Army. My best ball bro, we are going to be dropping a lot of content, a lot of heat for you guys, a lot of fuego. And as always, drop those Browns, man. You guys are sleeping on the Browns. Deshaun Watson, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Don't sleep. We have a video on that coming out soon as well. We've done a short on it, but I have a full in-depth video on why you should really be focused on that stack, because a lot of people are not focusing on it. And of course, when we're doing best ball, when we're doing these particular drafts, you also want to have some other Browns in there. So I'm not saying, yo, you have Deshaun Watson, you have DPJ, you're signed, sealed, and delivered for the Browns. Of course, you're going to want to add in Elijah Moore. You're going to want to add in David Njoku maybe, even Amari Cooper if that opportunity presents itself. But nonetheless, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Deshaun Watson, those are my top two most drafted at their respective positions. So if you look at my number one most drafted quarterback, Deshaun Watson, number one most drafted wide receiver, it's Donovan Peoples-Jones. So I'm not only telling you guys this, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. Actually, let's go ahead and exit out real quick. Go to completed just so that way you guys know I'm not just blowing up smoke. Click on the exposure. I click on wide receiver. Hello, Mr. Donovan Peoples-Jones. We go to quarterback. Hello, Mr. Deshaun Watson. So like I said, the Browns, the Seahawks, I'm very much in on. Mr. Mahomes. Go back to the wide receivers. I have Donovan Peoples-Jones, the aforementioned Deontay Johnson. And then you can see that Seahawks stack with JSN, Tyler Lockett. So if I have the opportunity to take them at the 5-6 turn or even close to that, I will almost do it absolutely every single time. You can see some other bets I have out there. Tyler Algier is my most drafted running back. I'm not going to cover that one too deep because I will show that a little bit later on. But don't sleep, guys. Definitely don't sleep. Let's find the draft that we were just in. Here we go. And go to draft. Let's pull up that board. We're about to be up at the 4-5 turn. So what am I hoping for to fall to me right now at the 4-5 turn? I got no clue. I'm going to have to just wait and see. Hopefully it's good, but, you just never know in these rooms. And this will definitely be the draft that I cut up and soundbite for shorts because I know at some point I lost my audio. The last draft, definitely a blooper. We just started this channel. We just started this live stream. This is the first one of many. We already got some blooper reels ready for you guys. So that's great. Already killing the content game. Alrighty. A little bit of a weird start for me. I don't think I've actually started with Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, Justin Jefferson. But that's the point of these smaller stakes draft. It's only $7. It's not my baby M4. You can kind of get a little bit weird. I definitely would have preferred having Tony Pollard with Derrick Henry and then having Justin Jefferson because that's a kind of OP start, overpowered. But nonetheless, we take what we get. And not too many badge bros in here. I got Yokohama, Triple Toe, and Majestic, 2 gray badges, Yokohama being the more experienced. So these are definitely some softer rooms right now, I would say. And that's not necessarily me bashing you guys without badges, but, the people that definitely have the badges have been in here. They know what the game plan is. They know what their personal game plan is. And they know how to make the roster constructions that are optimal. At least I hope they do because, why are you guys pissing away a thousand drafts to not have a good chance at winning? But, of course, this is a very much PvP game, player versus player. I do actually hope they kind of suck at their drafts because I'm over here to try and win. If Travis Etienne falls to me, that is going to be a travesty. What are we doing, guys? What are we doing? The guy dropped 1,200 yards last year coming off the list Frank. It was essentially his rookie year. So between his legendary workload at Clemson, because that guy was a top-tier running back in college, he had a year off. Granted, he got hurt. But, in terms of my thighs, my hamstrings, my body getting into a car crash every week, it wasn't happening for him. So he's a little bit fresher in that regard. Granted, you don't want to see a foot injury. But nonetheless, in terms of the overall body, he wasn't taking too many big hits. Of course, he played last year, so he was taking those hits. But they let me do it, man. That's tough. So we got Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, and Justin Jefferson. What a great start at running back. Definitely something that's a little bit unique because I don't foresee Travis Etienne falling to the end of round 4 often unless they clearly say, hey, we hate Travis Etienne. We like Tank Bigsby, which obviously is not the case. We definitely need a wide receiver here. I think I'm going to go ahead and move forward with Christian Kirk because we have Travis Etienne. I can kind of sleep on Trevor Lawrence, and honestly, I've already seen it happen. I made a Jag stack yesterday. So around that 6-7 turn, I will definitely have the opportunity to draft Trevor Lawrence. I know around round 9 or round 8, really. Let's take a look. Yeah, In round 9, which is pick number 97, I will be taking Evan Ingram if he falls to me, which I definitely think he will. So we'll have essentially a double stack. We'll have Josh Allen with Gabe Davis eventually if he falls. I kind of guarantee it will. And I'll also have Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. So the Bills, the Jags, two of the better offenses in the league, I think. So that'd definitely be very exciting. I don't know how you guys let this happen, but here I am. I'll take it. And as always, guys, I'm going to give you the YouTube influencer shout out. Please like the video. It definitely will help, and it will definitely motivate me to continue to produce a lot more content for you guys and drop some interesting nuggets. Please go ahead and subscribe so that way you guys are ready to go ahead and view this. It will help me. I promise you, I will go into a lot more high stakes drafts. So those DraftKings $100 entries, the $250 single entry pocket passer, we will be doing that. And right now I'm at, I believe what is 81 subscribers. If we can get this channel, interesting. Let me think of this. This is the first stream. This is the first video. If we can get this channel to 500 subscribers by the end of July, I will either 1, do some sort of giveaway, or 2, enter a very much high stakes draft. So I believe DraftKings has like a $2,000 draft or something like that. If I can get up to 500 subscribers, I think we have to enter one of those. I think it's called a luxury box. So I might have to move some crypto around in order to get that done. But nonetheless, we'll get it done for you guys. And I will be trying to go ahead and make a stream draft every day now, because we are getting into the thick of things where a lot of people are coming back. It's almost time for redraft to kind of start finalizing either your guys' draft order, your league settings, whatever it may be. I know you guys are starting to try to do some research. So definitely see the wave that's coming in. And I definitely want to service you guys and provide you guys some content. You have a lot of different influencers out there providing you some content. I'm trying to take it to your above. It's the name of the game. I'm a very competitive person, played sports my whole life. So I don't necessarily like to be second place. I'm always trying to gun for number 1, and that's what we will be doing not only on this channel, but also the IDP Army. So not only should you guys go ahead and like and subscribe here, but also the IDP Army as well. Alrighty, so let's pull up the draft board. It's kind of getting interesting here because we're almost back up on the clock. Thankfully, I don't see too many people replicating the Tyler Lockett JSN combo at the 5-6 turn. As you can see, they both go in the 6th round. I'm happy about that. Granted, I only have 1 or 2 teams so far in the poodle that kind of have that Seattle Seahawks stack. But I have a lot of it in Best Ball Mania 4. I have a lot of it in all the other puppy drafts. So I'm glad it's not necessarily a group thing in terms of getting that stack. I propose it on some Twitter boards, but I guess people are either 1, aren't crazy about it, or 2, it's like, yo, man, you're spilling the secrets right now. We don't want to give it to everyone else. And so that's also something you guys have to consider when you guys are viewing a lot of these influencers in regards to fantasy football and best ball. Like I said, this is very much player versus player. They will kind of give you some garbage takes. So that way you guys, as the majority, go ahead and run with it, and allows them to be in the minority, kind of scooping up the value. So like I'm saying with Travis Etienne, you're going to see a lot of people talk about, oh, you guys should be worried about Travis Etienne. Oh, they just drafted Tank Bigsby in the 3rd round. So that's definitely going to take away from Etienne. Well, I already knew the Jaguars don't want to feed Etienne almost 300 touches because he's an explosive player. So I kind of want him on a little bit of a pitch count so that way he's able to hit home runs whenever he touches the ball. It's kind of similar to Tony Pollard, where he's definitely going to be the lead back for the Cowboys, but don't expect him to get 300-plus touches like they used to give to DeMarco Murray, because as you saw, that definitely watered down DeMarco Murray and shortened his career. And like I predicted, we will take Gabe Davis just for the aesthetic of having back-to-back wide receivers in the draft board, and then we will follow that up with Trevor Lawrence. So as you guys can see, this is our start so far. A lot of guys aren't maybe necessarily making the stack for you guys, but here we have it. A little different. We have Josh Allen. We have Trevor Lawrence. So I'm definitely done at quarterback. Those are 2 high capital investments. I definitely would say I'm in QB bucket 1. If you guys have read Mike Leone's Best Ball Manifesto, there's certain buckets you want to target for the draft capital you're spending at certain positions. Definitely recommend reading that Best Ball Manifesto. I don't even know Mike Leone. I've drafted against him in a couple of the higher stakes DraftKings drafts. But he put out a great piece of content right there. I mean, that manifesto is definitely something you guys should read, especially if you're new to best ball. You guys want to kind of understand some of the methodologies, some of the trains of thoughts that you should probably adopt. I mentioned the 2583 and I mentioned the 2673. If you just go based off his research, it clearly shows you from an optimal perspective that 2673 is absolutely the move. You definitely want to take a lot more shots at running back. So me personally, so you have different trains of thoughts where, hey, if I'm going to draft 6-7 running backs, I don't really want to spend too much draft capital at running back, but I actually kind of modify that a little bit and take more of a hero running back, which is an early round 1, round 2, even round 3 running back. And of course, this year in Best Ball Mania, in terms of all the drafts, running backs are being watered down because everyone's falling in love with the wide receivers. So there's definitely still the opportunity to take a hero running back approach, even in the 3rd round. Because like I showed you guys, I just got Derrick Henry roughly in the 3rd round. Of course, I took Josh Allen in round 3, but I very easily could have flip-flopped that where I took Justin Jefferson, Josh Allen, then Derrick Henry. So I don't really care how you guys want to liken that term. But like I said, you have the opportunity to take premium running backs, your Derrick Henry, sometimes even Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs. You have these guys available to you in the 3rd round. You can definitely take a hero running back approach where I draft them and I'm kind of taking a break, hitting all my wide receiver thresholds. Like I said, roughly about 5 to 6 wide receivers within the first 100, 120 picks. And then I can come back to running back and take a lot more shots at it. So when I follow that 2-6-7-3 approach, I definitely don't have 2 premium running backs like I do right now with Derrick Henry and Travis Etienne. So I can already tell you that this build in particular will be a 2-5-8-3 because I have 2 premium quarterbacks. I have 2 premium running backs. I definitely want to take as many shots as I can take at wide receiver because that's a position that has a lot of spike weeks attached to it and a lot of variance as well. With running backs, I can kind of project the volume a lot more because I know for a fact Derrick Henry's going to get fed. I don't care about these reports like, oh, they're looking to lighten his workload with Tyjae Spears. We know that they want to run the ball. The offense runs through Derrick Henry. So even if Tyjae Spears is getting some work, it's really only to keep Derrick Henry fresh. When we're talking about those high-value touches, those touches within the red zone, within the 1-yard line, the 5-yard line, the 10-yard line, that's Derrick Henry's territory. So I know he's going to give me some touchdowns. Anytime the Titans are in the red zone, more often than not, that ball is going to Derrick Henry. And more often than not, that man's delivering. So in terms of that, I know Derrick Henry. And honestly, I even know Travis Etienne is going to deliver for us. I know he's going to get the volume. They did not spend. So actually, let me say this real quick. People have this misnomer that, hey, the person that drafted Travis Etienne is no longer there. And I'm talking about Urban Meyer, who's great Ohio State coach, terrible NFL coach. The GM that drafted Travis Etienne, because the GM is the one that makes the moves, not the coach. All right. They did want to take Kadarius Toney. At least that rumor was floated out there because he's very explosive, very much a playmaker. Almost kind of fits that Percy Harvin role in the Urban Meyer offense, almost that Curtis Samuel role, even like KJ Hill, Paris Campbell. They were very dynamic. You just got the ball in their hands, and they'll go ahead and move with it. Same way for Kadarius Toney, which we'll definitely jump into a little later on because my co-host loves Kadarius Toney for this year. But the GM is the one that drafts the players. And Trent Baalke, who's the GM of the Jags, is the one that drafted Travis Etienne. As you guys saw, they fed him the ball last year, but they want to keep him, 1, healthy, but 2, efficient. So they want to make sure he's making explosive plays. So I already know the volume is going to be there for Travis Etienne. Sure, it might not be a Derrick Henry workload where he's getting 25, 30 carries a game, but I'm more than happy with getting about 15 to 18 touches a game. 12 of those might be carries, 3 of those might be catches, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I know Etienne's going to eat, so a lot of these people are sleeping on him or telling you guys should be scared. I'm telling you, run away from them. All right, so we're about to be on the board. I will take Evan Ingram. I know I missed him on the last draft, but being that we have Trevor Lawrence, I have Etienne, I still do want another pass catcher for the team. And I absolutely will take Dalvin Cook, another one that you guys are kind of feeding. Oh, I just had to say that. All right, well, I was going to take Dalvin Cook. Unfortunately, he's gone, so that's 1,000% a stream fail. Nonetheless, we will take Evan Ingram. So far, we have Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, Justin Jefferson, Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Evan Ingram. I will be going ahead and trying to take Zay Jones if he falls to me in the next round. Not really counting on it. And I definitely will be taking Dalton Kincaid. So I'll have 2 premium investments into the tight end position. I am going to go ahead and move forward with Jamison Williams. I need some more wide receivers. Like I said, you need a lot of wide receivers winning those top 100, 120 picks. I'm a little bit behind my own mantra in that regard. Because I only have 4. And on top of that, Jamison Williams is going to be suspended for the first 6 games of the season because of the retarded gambling policy. If he would have gambled at home, he would have been perfectly fine. Because he was eating breakfast or lunch at the team facility. Now it's a little bit of a slap on the wrist. Nonetheless, I don't really care. If you guys remember Jamison Williams at Alabama, guy was an absolute home run hitter. Any ball he caught, he could take to the house. Go ahead and watch that Miami game because he had a couple of those. On top of that, he was an Ohio State receiver. I'm very loyal to my guys. Next time I do a stream draft, I will definitely have an Ohio State Braxton Miller jersey on. Shout out Braxton Miller. But nonetheless, I will continue to hammer out wide receivers. And hopefully, we can get Dalton Kincaid and or Dawson Knox later on as well. Like I said, I like to take a 3 tight end approach. I already know that this is going to be a 2-5-8-3 based on the 2 running backs I took. So with that being said, I will go for at least 2 stabs at the Bills because that's a way to get more diversity into their pass catchers. And how many teams out there really have Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox? Because it's very easy. You guys are just painting a scenario or painting a picture in your head of Dalton Kincaid popping off week 15, going nuclear, let's say having 6 catches, 120 yards, a touchdown. And the next week, Dawson Knox follows that up with 5 catches, 44 yards, but 2 touchdowns. Because they're definitely going to spread the ball between the 2 tight ends. They didn't sign Dawson Knox last year to a very nice contract for a tight end. I know they just drafted Dalton Kincaid, but he's honestly going to be a little bit more of their slot receiver. So I know that they have Khalil Shakir. They honestly brought back Cole Beasley last year, which Cole Beasley is he's in the twilight stages of his career, just to put it nice. Because I don't want to make an enemy with Cole Beasley. Very productive, great times with the Cowboys. And he had a good season with the Bills when he first got there, maybe the first couple of seasons. But he's definitely not that guy as much anymore, similar to Adam Thielen. And the fact that they had to bring back Cole Beasley at the end of last year was a red flag to me because that showed me that they didn't necessarily think Khalil Shakir could get the job done. Of course, they had Isaiah McKenzie as well, but he was in and out of the lineup with some injury issues. So the fact that they went ahead and signed Deontay Hardy, they also signed Trent Sherfield. They're looking for additional bodies at that wide receiver position. It means that they weren't falling in love with Khalil Shakir. Hence why they drafted Dalton Kincaid in the first round. Maybe they panicked a little bit because all the wide receivers went off the board. But that's neither here nor there. They've already made the decision. They're kind of married to that draft pick, at least for the next 4 or 5 years. So I am going to go ahead and draft that player if he's available to me. It's not a guarantee because, as we've seen, been not necessarily getting sniped, but kind of foretelling a situation that never actually pans out. So somewhat of a travesty. All right, so going into round 10, it's almost back to us. I don't necessarily have to fear in regards to anyone stealing my players because we do have a little bit of a unique build. I don't know how many of you guys out there are actually actively stacking both the Bills and the Jaguars. Of course, the Bills play the Patriots in Week 17. So Patriots are a pretty lackluster team in terms of where their skill position players are being drafted, aside from Ramondre Stevenson, of course, because he's going in round 3 as well, as that another one of those running backs that you can consider for a hero running back build. But nonetheless, when you have Juju Smith-Schuster, you have Tyquan Thornton, Devontae Parker, not necessarily the sexiest of names at wide receivers, so no one's clamoring for those guys to be drafted very early. Now, that might change a little bit if they sign DeAndre Hopkins, but as of this recording, he is definitely not on the team as of yet, unless I'm missing some news and I don't have any alerts, so I would never actually even know. And on top of that, like I saw in the last draft, we're definitely going to have a chance at getting Mike Gesicki late. And I do love those 3 tight ends, so maybe I actually do go ahead and go Evan Ingram, Dalton Kincaid, and then go Mike Gesicki just to have that Week 17 bring back. Kind of just have to wait and see. But so far, 2-2-4-1. This team, I can already tell you, will be a 2-5-8-3. And just looking at the board, we will absolutely take Zay Jones if he falls to us. So I was hoping he might fall to us. We could take Kirk Cousins, but there's no reason to take a third quarterback when I already have Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence. It just wouldn't make sense for the draft capital I've already invested into the quarterback position to take a third quarterback that not only has the same buy as Josh Allen, perfect. Zay Jones went off the board. That's tough. Yeah, I mean, I definitely know for a fact that these guys are not watching this stream, and I actually would be very much shocked because this is a very small channel at the moment. Kind of sucks to precursor the draft pick and not even get the draft pick. But nonetheless, we'll take the punches and we'll keep rolling. So we do have a 2-2-4-1. Why not? I know we don't have Lamar Jackson. Let's go with Odell Beckham Jr. I just need another wide receiver, guys. Unfortunately, granted, this is a Week 13 bye. Maybe not the greatest. And I know for a fact Dalton Kincaid is not going to fall back to me. Rashad Penny's a screaming value at one. Yeah, we're going to take Rashad Penny, guys. I'm not going to fall in love with Dalton Kincaid. Sure, it would be nice, but I'm not going to necessarily reach. I'll just take the value when it falls to me. Right now, we have a 2-3-5-1. DeAndre Swift is perpetually hurt, or at least that's what his time with the Lions had been. Now, that's not to say that Rashad Penny is not in that same criteria, that same boat, because he absolutely is. But with the Eagles' offense, it's going to rotate between DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny, at least so I think. Granted, Rashad Penny does not have a lot of money on his contract, so they're not necessarily married to him. They can very easily cut him. But nonetheless, I do think if they did cut him, he would have no issues finding work somewhere else, just based off the talent alone. And when he does play, the guy is a monster in terms of yards per carry. I think he's got a top 3 yards per carry all time. But, of course, that's not considering the amount of games he's played, which hasn't really been that much. And trust me, as a guy that drafted him in his rookie year, he didn't do anything for me. That was more so Chris Carson. But I'm hoping that with a new change of scenery, that Eagles' offensive line is fantastic, that he does actually go ahead and propel to at least a decent RB2, RB3 production at some points throughout the season. It really just takes a touchdown. I know Jalen Hurts can be a goal line back, but hopefully they use Rashad Penny a little bit in that role. I can foresee a future where it's DeAndre Swift, who's really more like the change of pace, but of course he's going to get mixed in on first and second down just to kind of keep the defense guessing. Definitely would say Rashad Penny's more so that early down grinder where he's going to get the workload on first and second down, especially when they're clear rushing downs. But once again, this is going to telegraph their hand a little bit. So I don't necessarily say that, they're going to marry him to that role specifically, but I don't necessarily see as much third down opportunities for Rashad Penny as I would for, let's say, DeAndre Swift and Kenneth Gainwell, who are definitely more so proficient in that area. But like I said, those high-value touches within the red zone, fingers crossed they go to Penny. It's not a guarantee, but this is best ball. We got to take some projection, we got to take some stands, and we also got to pray a little bit. All right, so far we have a 2-3-5-1 from the number 1 overall pick slot. We have Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, so 2 premium quarterbacks. We have Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, Rashad Penny. And then we have Justin Jefferson, Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Jamison Williams, Odell Beckham Jr., and then lastly we have Evan Ingram. So we have 3 Jaguars in terms of skill position players, because of course we have 4 with Trevor Lawrence, but in terms of people that he can actually get the ball to, we have Etienne, we have Christian Kirk, we have Evan Ingram. So we don't need any more Jaguars, and we'll definitely be looking to get a Carolina Panther in the later stages of the draft. Probably not going to be a Jonathan Mingo unless he falls to us, which I'm not even crazy about him as it is. I know Underdog's done a lot of hype in regards to him, but I'm personally not someone that's projecting too much for him. I'm perfectly fine settling for maybe even a Hayden Hurst if he falls to me very late on, because like I said, I love my 3 tight ends. I could also look into someone like Chuba Hubbard maybe as my 5th running back, because I definitely will take a 4th one before then if I'm only going to stick to the 5. And once again, I could – Jonathan Mingo goes. So perfect. I don't have to worry about that problem myself. So very interested to see what kind of unfolds on this board. Let's go ahead and scroll that down so that way you guys can see. And definitely still need to get ahead at wide receiver because I'm very much behind my own personal 8 ball. So 2-3-5-1. I wouldn't be surprised to see myself go with 2 consecutive wide receivers here. Make it a 2-3-7-1. And then kind of hammer out those running backs and tight ends later on, and then throw one last late dart throw, whether it's at Trent Sherfield or Deontay Hardy in round 18, to kind of finalize my Bills stack. But like I said, I have to kind of wait and see how the draft board unfolds. And I'm not going to do necessarily a 3rd stream draft. Let me see. I started this at 11:30, so almost an hour and a half deep. Oh, I would love to do a 3rd stream draft, but I'm probably just going to do that my own peace of mind. Also going to multi-table them so that way I can get through them a little faster, especially before the tournament fills. So let's just go ahead and see what falls to us. I'm probably not going to take Adam Thielen, but I might also not have a choice. Definitely going to go with my boy, Tyler Algier, because I am a believer in Algier. You guys are kind of sleeping on him. Like I showed you guys before, he is my most drafted player overall on Underdog. And on top of that, if you really look at Tyler Algier, he had a 1,000-yard season last year I understand that they drafted Bijan, and matter of fact, I drafted Bijan in the last stream draft I did, aka probably about 30 minutes ago. But like I showed you guys, the Falcons are the most heavy rushing team in the league. They're the most run heavy team in the league. There will absolutely be a place for Tyler Algier to get some touches. You look back at last year, they had Cordell Patterson, they had Tyler Algier, they also had Caleb Huntley, who was getting some touches as well. So three-headed monster essentially at running back. I think Bijan is going to sometimes be a little frustrating because you're going to see Algier on the field. You might even see Cordell Patterson come in. I actually do think they're going to use Cordell Patterson more as like a flex player in the sense where he might play running back, he might play wide receiver. So they're going to give the defense a lot of different looks. And I also can foresee a formation where they have both Bijan and Algier on the field, whether they're going to split Bijan out to the slot, out wide. I definitely think there's a lot of room. Arthur Smith is a very innovative offensive coordinator. Now, I know he might frustrate us a lot, especially with his usage of Kyle Pitts and Drake London, but I think that's a little bit more so an indictment on Marcus Mariota as an individual rather than Arthur Smith. He felt like the best game plan was to run the ball. That's definitely a testament to how limited he must have felt that Marcus Mariota was. And I do foresee a little bit of growth and improvement from Desmond Ridder from last year to this year, not only being 1 year more into that offense, but two, you got a little bit of a taste of what the NFL is like those last 4 games of the season. So now he can actually take it to the drawing board for the whole offseason. He's already been declared the starter. He already knew that going into the draft. So I love that. Arthur Smith's committed to him. He was a 3rd-round pick. I'm not saying they're married to him for the long term, but at least looking for this particular year, I do still foresee Arthur Smith, one, following that run-heavy approach. Now, I do think they're going to throw the ball a little bit more, especially with what I project to be a better passer than Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder. Tyler Algier is definitely going to have his place. That's essentially what I'm trying to say to you guys there. And then, of course, my next pick from there was Michael Gallup. We're kind of sleeping on Michael Gallup a little bit. So it's very interesting because I have a Week 17 correlation with him and Jameson Williams. But I understand he wasn't the greatest last year. You have to understand he was coming off the ACL injury. So give him a year under his belt, which he already has. I definitely foresee Michael Gallup kind of returning to the Michael Gallup of old. He was a 1,000-yard receiver the year before, which is why they went ahead and paid him a 5-year, $62.5 million contract. They let Amari Cooper go because they were very confident in CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. It was a very unfortunate injury that he suffered tearing the ACL. But nonetheless, I do foresee Michael Gallup coming back. I know there was a report that he said he was feeling a little bit more springy with that knee. So that's definitely something that you'd like to hear. I know they drafted Jalen Tolbert last year. Definitely did not impress them enough because they went ahead this offseason, added Brandon Cooks. And I know some people might be a little bit scared off about that, but I don't see why. CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, the defense isn't going to be able to key in on anybody. Of course, CeeDee Lamb's going to be the top target earner. I think he's a dark horse to finish as a wide receiver 1 overall. I like his chemistry with Dak. And there'll definitely be weeks where it's Brandon Cooks popping off. There's definitely going to be weeks where it's Michael Gallup popping off. So I think the Cowboys, I know Kellen Moore's gone. I know a lot of people are saying, they're not going to play as up-tempo as they were. Mike McCarthy is going to run the ball a lot more. I don't know, guys. I think Madison Parkhill had a great article on this. So shout out to Madison Parkhill's Substack. Definitely very insightful. Talking about the pace, the amount of plays that the Cowboys played with when Mike McCarthy was the head coach of the Packers. So he's always talked about being a little bit more run heavy. But if you actually look into the underlying data, it actually shows him being a little bit more pass heavy. So I'm not necessarily thinking, they're going to pass more than they did last year, but nonetheless, they have better options at receiver. So their passing game is going to be a little bit more efficient, I believe. Of course, that's just more so a projection. We kind of have to wait and see how that plays out. But nonetheless, I will take my step at Michael Gallup, especially when it's a position of need for me, aka wide receiver. Now I have 6 wide receivers. We're about to come up on this round 15 and 16 turn, 14 and 15 turn. This is what the draft board looks like so far. At a 2-4-6-1 build, like I mentioned to you guys earlier, I'm okay with waiting for my 2 tight ends. I've already kind of invested a little bit of premium capital into Evan Ingram. I definitely will be trying to get Dawson Knox because it will pair up with Josh Allen. Eventually, I might have to make the consideration between Hayden Hurst, which would be a bring back for the Jags, or even bringing back, Mike Gesicki, because he's going to be a bring back for the Bills. Kind of just have to wait and see. Picks in rounds 14 and 15, we will definitely be hitting some wide receivers. So actually, we're going to go ahead and progress with Tyquan Thornton unless we get sniped. Thankfully, this is the first time we don't after I mention it. So Tyquan, welcome to the team. We have our New England bringback for the Bills stack. Now that kind of frees me up a little bit. So I don't have to be married to the idea of Mike Gesicki. So I'm actually going to go ahead and proceed with Sam Laporta. So now we have two Lions pass catchers, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta. I think Laporta will be a beneficiary early on of Jameson Williams being suspended for those first 6 weeks. So it should allow for them to develop some rapport or some chemistry between Laporta and Goff. So if you look at the Lions offense to start off, I know for a fact Jahmyr Gibbs is definitely going to be one of the top receiving options, either number 1 or number 2. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is pretty safe to project as that number 1 option for Goff. Goff does love his slot receivers. Even think back to his time with the Rams. He loved Cooper Kupp. I understand that Matthew Stafford took Cooper Kupp to another level. Do I think Matthew Stafford's a better quarterback than Jared Goff? Yes. So that's not really that hard to understand. But then 2, we have Gibbs at the number 2 slot, or we could have Laporta at that number 2 slot. I know everyone's falling in love with Gibbs right now, but don't underestimate Laporta, who had a very high grade coming out of college. He was a fantastic Iowa tight end. If you think about all the Iowa tight ends that have come out, they are a factory for tight ends, and he was the number 1 receiving tight end out of all of that lineage of tight ends. So think about your George Kittles, think about your Noah Fants. Laporta was better than them. And on top of that, he's going to a vacant role. They don't have TJ Hawkinson anymore. Of course, they traded him. I believe they have Brock Wright, who a lot of people are not familiar with, so you shouldn't be married to that name, as well as James Mitchell. Which, once again, look at Brock Wright. You guys don't really know who James Mitchell is. He's an athletic freak, but nonetheless, they drafted Laporta in the 2nd round with a decent pick in the 2nd round, a little bit higher up there. So they clearly have a plan for him. They drafted him over Michael Mayer, so they obviously liked him a lot more than Michael Mayer, who, when he was first coming out, like when he was like a sophomore and they were projecting him for the next year, they kind of liked him to like a baby Gronk. Nah, dude, Gronk's one of a kind. So that's almost a little bit disrespectful to Gronk. But nonetheless, they had a higher grade on Laporta than they did Gronk. So I just noticed it myself, and I know you guys are probably looking at it and saying, wow, you have Evan Ingram and Sam Laporta. Hey, bro, they both have week 9 buys. Absolutely correct. But like I've already told you guys, I'm always going to go with 3 tight ends, especially when I have 2 premium running backs, because I'm a big believer in the 2-5-8-3, and it helps you with advanced rate. I promise you that. It's one of the most advancing formations. So when you guys are entering into these and you're trying to make it to the playoffs, that's definitely a roster construction that can help get you there. We do have Dawson Knox, but he's 12 picks away, so I definitely doubt I'm going to have a chance of getting him. Definitely don't have to take Gesicki anymore because we took Laporta. I would like to take Chuba Hubbard because we do need a bring back for the Jags, and that would definitely be one way of accomplishing that for the Panthers. I could also do Terrace Marshall later on, but I don't know, man. They drafted Jonathan Mingo. They signed Adam Thielen to a 3-year, $25 million contract. They also signed DJ Chark to, I believe it was a 1-year, $5 million with escalators that could take it to like 1 year, $8 million. So they clearly had 3 pass catchers in mind that they all preferred that weren't even on the roster before. They preferred Terrace Marshall, so it's kind of relegating him to a battle for the 4th or 5th slot. He could even be cut. They also have Laviska Shenault on that roster as well, which very early on, a lot of people were high on Laviska, and he definitely had a lot of potential, but just never really found that footing, kind of like a Cordero Patterson type player, which I can definitely see emerging later on down the line. He just really needs to find a situation where the coach knows how to utilize him. I don't necessarily believe that's going to be with Frank Reich because if you look back at the Colts, they didn't really run any kind of players like that. They had Paris Campbell. He had a decent year last year, but, they didn't really use him like that. Granted, if you had Jonathan Taylor in your backfield, you wouldn't have to use Paris Campbell like that either, but I like to see some coordinators that are pretty innovative and inventive. I don't think Frank Reich is going to be one of them. So fingers crossed, how we have this queue right now is kind of how it falls to us. We're up in 4 picks. We'll definitely take Dawson Knox ahead of Chuba Hubbard, just so that way I have Dawson Knox, I have Gabe Davis with Josh Allen. I will definitely still try to hit another Bills receiver because if we're thinking that the Buffalo Bills, a.k.a. Josh Allen's going to pass for 4,500 passing yards, of course, you can take a solid third of the pie, about 1,500 yards, throw that to Stephon Diggs. But those other pass catchers on the team are definitely going to soak up the remaining 3,000 yards. Let's just say Dalton Kincaid has a fantastic rookie season, which would probably be in the realms of, let's say, 800 yards. That's still 2,200 yards, or excuse me, 2,200 yards available. So you definitely would want to take that. Fortunately, Dawson Knox goes, but we do still have the opportunity to take Chuba Hubbard. So that will be our 5th running back. We will definitely be done at running back. So now at running back, we have Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, Rashad Penny, Tyler Algier, Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard being the bring back to all of my Jags players. And now we do still need a tight end. And I'd like a tight end that has projectable volume. So I think I'm going to double down on my bet with the Jets. And I will go ahead and move forward with Tyler Conklin. So Aaron Rodgers loves his tight ends. I'm definitely hoping so. We have Evan Ingram, Laporta, and Tyler Conklin. So we're definitely done at tight end. We're done at running back, and we're done at quarterback. So we only have one more draft spot, round 18, and we will absolutely, it's the last pick of the draft, we will absolutely be taking another wide receiver. And let's go ahead and just start queuing up that build player. It's going to be Dante. And we got Shakir's gone. Yes, sir. We got Sherfield. Ooh, knocked that over, huh? So like I mentioned earlier before, a lot of people aren't talking about Trent Sherfield. He's definitely got some speed. I saw it last year with the Dolphins. There's a little bit of like a mystery between who's going to actually become that other receiver for the Bills. They signed Hardy, but they also signed Sherfield. I know a lot of people are drafting Hardy right away, but it's just not a guarantee. I mean, he was a little bit dinged up last year. He only had 2 catches for 13 yards. He could honestly just be relegated to more so a returner role, punt return, kick return. They also have Nyheim Hines for that. And as you can see here, Trent Sherfield generating a little bit more buzz. Like I said, he had a decent brief stint with the Dolphins last year, 30 catches, 417 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm actually going to go ahead and be a little bit more contrarian because I think a lot of people are penciling Hardy as being that other guy. And I don't really understand if a lot of people are, I don't really know if a lot of people are in on Trent Sherfield. And I don't think a lot are. So if we actually go back in time when we revisit the Poodle 3, Trent Sherfield might only be drafted 1% of the time out of all of the drafts that there are. So I definitely want to be a little bit unique, and no one else is going to have Sherfield. I definitely want to have Sherfield because maybe that's the guy you need in week 16, week 15, and of course, the big money final prize, week 17. So I really don't foresee a scenario where someone's going to snipe me on Trent Sherfield. That would be definitely shocking. I doubt someone's watching the stream seeing this queued up right now. If you are, please go ahead and make sure to drop a like on this video or subscribe to the channel because we'll definitely have a lot more content for you guys. I might actually come back later tonight with a stream draft. Definitely not a Poodle 3 though. Something a little bit more high stakes like a BBM 4 because that's going to be a little bit of a more different approach because I want to definitely take my flag plant players, my players that I truly believe in, versus something like the Poodle 3 where I'm looking to get a little bit more exposure elsewhere, maybe not hit in on my personal biases as much. Just so that way, if my personal biases aren't hitting where I really have a lot of money invested, aka BBM4, these smaller stakes draft where I might have a little bit of a unique or different build or a different take, those players that are hitting that I don't have exposure to, well, now I have exposure to them and I have some sort of outs in the sense that they do pop off. At least I have some exposure later on. So that's kind of what I use these puppy drafts, these Poodle 3s or Poodle drafts, the Chihuahuas, the Pomeranians. Obviously, I didn't do the Pomeranian, but I would. Is to get a little bit unique, try some things that you haven't done before. Because if you're just doing the same old, or you're really hitting the same players, if those players aren't hitting, then you're just going to be out. And I definitely don't want that. I definitely want to have a little bit of a portfolio of players I'm approaching. So I definitely want to have my bets spread out a little bit. I'm a finance guy. I'm a crypto bro. So I don't necessarily put all my eggs in one basket. I definitely like to spread it out just a little bit. And we have 4 picks until the conclusion of this draft. Like I said, we have Trent Sherfield at the top of the queue. Just looking to get a little different. I definitely need some more wide receivers since I'm at a 2.573. I am targeting that 2.583. So just to recap real quick, we have Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, 2 legitimate contenders to finish as top 5 quarterbacks. I definitely would say for sure with Josh Allen because that's why we're drafting him round 2, round 3. And of course, he's finished QB2, QB1, or QB1, QB2. So he's definitely shown you guys he can produce. I do think that they limit his rushing just a little bit because that's the franchise. So don't want him to get hurt. But nonetheless, as a passer, he's definitely still very capable. And same thing with Trevor Lawrence. We have our 5 running backs: Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, Rashad Penny, Tyler Algier, Chuba Hubbard. We have Justin Jefferson, Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Jamison Williams, Odell Beckham Jr., Michael Gallup, Tyquan Thornton, and last but not least, we're adding Trent Sherfield to the team, so this draft is now concluded. And we finished off at tight end, Evan Ingram, Sam Laporta, and Tyler Conklin. So I definitely want to say thank you guys so much. Oh, wait, you actually drafted. No, it's over on the left. So this was my first stream draft. I definitely wanted to bring this to you guys. A new venture for me, definitely something I look forward to continuing. I will have a lot more content. So will my partner. The Best Ball Bros are here to stay. We're definitely going to make some waves. We're definitely going to be winning some of these tournaments. I don't know which one. Could be the Puppy. Could be BBM4. I know for a fact I'm winning one of them. And, you guys might laugh at this, but I promise you we're going to revisit this come January of next year, 2024. And I will have either won or at least have a top 10 finish on one of these major tournaments. Like I said, I've already maxed out the DraftKings Millie Maker. A lot of people are going to be like, oh, wow, like that's kind of stupid, bro. Like, you don't even know what's going to happen in training camp preseason. Well, to be honest with you, I don't really care as much about DraftKings as I do this underdog one. But 2, I feel like I have an edge in DraftKings because a lot of them are casuals in there. And I promise you, those rooms are very soft. So if you're someone that's drafted exclusively on underdog, it's worth your time to kind of venture into DraftKings. It's pretty crappy in terms of UI, UX. I actually was doing a draft yesterday and it completely froze. Like the whole DraftKings site went down for maintenance in the middle of my draft. So that wasn't the greatest experiences because by the time it came back up and running and I got notified, I actually auto-picked the player. So DraftKings, step it up. You guys have to do a lot better there. You can't be doing maintenance in the middle of the day, especially when I'm in the draft. That's kind of messed up. I'll do that thing at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when everyone's asleep. But on top of that, we already maxed that out. I found the edge. There's 20 rounds in that draft. So there are going to be more viable pathways in terms of roster construction. If I'm going with an elite quarterback or even 2 elite quarterbacks, I'm definitely going with like a 2.693 or even a 2.783. Depends on my elite quarterback. Because let's say I have Mahomes and Kelsey stacked, I might actually go like a 2.792. Get kind of weird with it. On top of that, if I don't have one of those elite quarterbacks and I have some more of the mid-tier options, someone like Trevor Lawrence, Geno Smith, I'll actually take a third quarterback like a Russell Wilson, and I'll have my 3.683. That's a pretty nice construction for me personally that I've had a lot of success with in terms of how I wanted to be building from the start on DraftKings. And like I said, I feel like I'm pretty good at finding players that everyone else is kind of undervaluing. So in terms of finding that closing line value, like I was hammering Tyler Chandler round 20 at DraftKings, and now he goes around round 17. So you don't have as many opportunities to find those hidden gems in August if you're waiting for all the perfect news to come out, because everyone has that same kind of news. But if you plug yourself, you apply yourself, and you do some of the research, or you just really know about your team, like I said, I'm a Vikings fan, so I already knew about Ty Chandler. There's definitely some edges that you can find in there. I'll give you one little nugget. Nyheim Hines is not being drafted at all on DraftKings. He really goes undrafted. So being able, if you're a little bit behind at running back, to feel good about saying, all right, well, I only have 5 running backs. I definitely want to take a 6th one. You can wait to the last round. You can take a Zach Evans. You can take a Nyheim Hines. Just keep in mind on DraftKings, it's full PPR, not like underdog where it's half PPR. So those running backs that get the little dump offs, like a J.D. McKissick, a.k.a. Nyheim Hines, like why else did the Bills trade for him last year at the deadline? They're definitely going to give him a role. His contract shows that they're definitely not going to be able to cut him, and he actually restructured it already. So he's not going to be a cap casualty. It's definitely someone that's an interesting nugget for you guys to at least have on the watch list for DraftKings in particular. Maybe not so much as underdog because I don't foresee him spelling James Cook that often, or even, let's say, Damian Harris or the winner of the Damian Harris-Latavius Murray battle for the grinder back. But he'll definitely be the 3rd running back, and I definitely foresee him having a role in passing down. So on DraftKings, that's especially valuable, not so much as on underdog. But nonetheless, if you guys enjoyed this video, please go ahead and like, subscribe. Not only this channel, Fantasy Football Shorts Network, but also the IDP Army. We'll have a lot more content coming out for you guys. This is my first stream, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it was rough for a moment where I actually lost the audio. I accidentally clicked a little button that turned off the sound. But we live, we learn. We'll be back and better. So I hope you guys had enjoyed this. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day. I'll see you guys in some drafts. Hope you guys take care. Peace.